Hello, everybody. Once again, I'm Liam Craft Jr., aka Overall Chan Less Than Guru, and in this episode, I want to start my talk about SDC and the problem that occurred 30 years ago in my group. The temporary fix, or the first fix that I did, and then my current fix that I did that I found has worked so much better. So again, this is all subjective. It's my opinion. If you are fine with Palladium armor, then you can keep it the same. I'm not saying you need to change it. I'm just saying that if you have found problems like I did in my groups, then this might be beneficial for you. So here's the nice chart for Palladium. They have light armor, which is your cloth and leathers, and then they have your heavy armors, which are metal. And they all have armor rating. How armor rating works in Palladium is like how armor class works in D&D 3rd edition and beyond, which is the higher the armor class, the better it is. In Palladium, a good thing to remember is defender always wins ties. So unlike armor class in D&D, where that's the number that you need to hit, in Palladium, you need to exceed that number. So if we look here and we have a plate of full suit is 17, that means you need an 18. And that's equivalent of the old school D&D where you needed an 18 to hit an armor class 2, which was normally plate armor in depending on the system, because there were slight adjustments between a BX, BECME, and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons edition. But that's basically it. You needed an 18. In Palladium, you still need an 18, but they have a 17 being the protective. You remember, defender wins ties. That is the way to think about it. My problem occurred is when players would buy armor, and I do like the idea of your armor gets damaged over time. I'm perfectly fine with that. I like that aspect of it. But the problem is when my players got to a certain level where they had enough hit points and they had healers, Palladium healers, usually it's like old school D&D. You don't get healing from your clerics until 2nd level in old school D&D, and it was the same in Palladium 1st edition. So that 1st or 2nd level, when you have lower hit points and you don't have a healer, you want your armor to be hit, which is natural. Don't hit me, hit my armor. But what happened is as you gained more hit points, players started either not repairing their armor, tossing away their armor, or wanting to get hit unless it would kill them. And that's the time that they wanted their armor to hit, because in Palladium, SDC, structural damage capacity, is what are kind of the hit points of armor. And all the other Palladium games, and in 2nd edition, people have personal SDC, but then there's the armor, and this armor chart has never changed. So as players got SDC, these armor charts didn't change, and player SDC, in some cases in Palladium 2nd, you would have much more SDC personal than your armor does. And your personal can be healed by the healer. And if you have a healer in your party, you're not spending time, or you're spending a little time, but not much time, and you're not spending resources, because healers in Palladium, the clerics, they can do it every other round. They can heal every other round. There's no other limit. There's no points. There's no spell slot. There's nothing like that. So if I get hit and I take 10 points of damage, that might be a couple of rounds to be healed. Personally, if my armor takes 10 points of damage, if it's cloth, and we look here, it's gone. Poof, it's gone. I have to buy a whole new set of armor, which is going to be 20 gold. If it takes, if it's a 15, 2 10-point hits are going to get rid of it. If it is a normal 10-point hit, what happens in Palladium is when your SDC goes down, I believe the first is at halfway mark, it lowers by 2 armor rating. And then if it gets down to the 3rd SDC mark, then it takes an additional 2 deduction to armor rating. So this one, like cloth, it would never get to be a 3, because in Palladium, a 1 through 4 always misses. So the cloth armor by itself is you have one roll that could happen where your armor takes damage instead of you. And for these higher ones, like here, an 8 reduction by 2 gets 6, and then a reduction after that, it's not going to hit you anyway. So there's a little bit of that. And even if we're talking about this, say, heavy armor, where you have like the splint armor has 82, you get 10 taken off. Well, you're going to have to repair that. If you want that professional repair, and you look here at that splint, to get your 10 SDC increased, to get it back, it's going to take 5 to 6 days, and it's going to cost 80 gold. And we look here, splint's 400. 80 of that is a fifth. For only 10 points when it has, or sorry, it's 700. I was looking at half suit, so 700. But it's 82 to get those 10 points back. It's going to take that 5 to almost a full week to get that back. Here, again, it restores AR if brought back to half, restores 2 points of armor rating if brought back to half, restores full if brought back to full. You have all of that weird stuff happening, and what it results in is people wanting to get hit and not caring about armor. My first fix for this was to take all of the SDC and just add a 0 behind it. So 60, 150, and when you get up to the full suit of plane, 1,600. And that worked in taking a lot longer to reduce your AR by getting it to those levels of damage and needing to be repaired or becoming worthless. But you still would be paying a lot to get those points back. So you could adjust that. That is one fix that you could use. And back in the 90s, that's the fix that I used, and it worked okay. That was what I was going to use originally for my new Palladium campaign that I've been doing for the last 2.5 to 3 years. But I decided to try something else different. And again, this is where you beg, borrow, steal from other game systems or other even Palladium game systems or other people's house rules. And I knew there was a house rule out there for MDC. In other Palladium games, there is mega damage capacity instead of structural damage capacity, and it's basically 100 points of SDC damage can do 1 point of MDC damage. 1 point of MD damage would do 100 points of SDC damage. So the range was 100, a 1 to 100 ratio. And some people thought that that was a little too much, so they did other ratios, and one of them was a 1 to 10 ratio. So I decided, hey, maybe I will do that. Damage to armor would need a 1 to 10. So you would have to do 10 points of damage to do 1 SDC points of damage. And I implemented that at the beginning, and it worked, although there was another snag, because every time you change a rule, you have to worry about ripple effects. So the ripple effect here was my light armor compared to the half suits. So as an example, my hard leather here is a 1030, only weighs 10 pounds, and is 150 gold. If I look down here, I have a double mail half suit, which is also 10, 28 points of SDC, so only 2 points lower, or it is 2 points lower than the 30 here. It almost doubles in weight, so 20 pounds instead of 11. And if we look here, it's 50 gold pieces more. So there is no reason whatsoever to get your double mail rather than the hard leather. The hard leather is cheaper. It has the same AR. It has 2 points higher SDC, and it's almost half the weight. So I was thinking, what would work to make my heavy armors be beneficial? Why would you want a half a suit of heavy armor if everything is worse or the same? And it also works with here. The studded leather, it's 220, 38 points, and 20 pounds. And you look at an equivalent here is a full suit of chainmail, which is 80, cost 80 more. It gives you a few SDC more, about six points, and is half, or the chainmail is double the weight. So what I decided to do is have a light material and a heavy material. My light materials are going to be stuff like wooden doors. It's going to be the cloth. It's going to be the leather, the padding, stuff like that is light. 5 points of normal damage reduces SDC by 1. And then for heavy armor, 10 full points of damage reduces it by 1 SDC. And what that allowed me to do is if somebody does 11 points of damage, because as I mentioned before, always round down in my games, if you do 11 points of damage, if somebody swings a sword and they hit you and they do 11 points of damage and they hit your armor, if they hit your, say, your soft leather, that's going to do 2 points of SDC. So that 20 is going to be reduced to an 18. Your AR isn't automatically going to be lowered by 2 or 4 points like it would be originally. You're going to be able to use that armor longer, but the armor is going to get hurt and damaged over time. So you will have to repair it at some time, but it won't be immediately. So you will want your armor to be hit instead of you. Now, if we look at, say, that soft leather, and here the chainmail has that same 9, that 11 points of damage is only going to do 1 point of damage. So that half suit of 20, instead of being reduced to an 18, is going to be reduced only to a 19. So that makes it, gives you a reason to pay more money, to carry more weight, to possibly have worse modifiers from that weight you're carrying and working in armor, how Palladium has penalties for wearing armor. And it just fit really, really well. And as you take more damage, that reduction is more beneficial towards the heavy armor, but you still would at least want to wear light armor instead of getting hit yourself. So such as something, say, gives 24 points of damage. 24 points of damage would be 24 points of damage to your shock points or hit points. That's a lot of damage. If you're getting hit with light armor and that hits your light armor, then it's going to be 4 points, because 24 divided by 5 round down is 4 points. So any of these are going to withstand at least 1 blow. Even the lowest cloth armor at 6 is still going to have 2 SDC. Now, it's not going to necessarily be good because of the armor rating is going to move down, and a 1 through 4 misses no matter what, but you could repair that, and maybe it's not going to cost that 20 gold. If we look up here for cloth, it's going to get your SDC restored, but for only half the price. So it gives a reason. And then as you go up, it's even going to be better for that studded armor. Those 4 points are only going to make it a 34 instead of a 38. So that's going to be a lot better. But it's really going to be effective for your heavy armors. So your heavy armors, that 24 divided by 10 rounded down is only going to be 2 points. So there, your 44 up here for your chain mail is only going to be reduced to 42. So your armor will take damage, and sooner or later your characters, your players will have their characters repair that armor. It will take resources of time and money, but it doesn't happen so fast. And there are times where that damage is going to be completely mitigated. That 9 points of damage, if you're wearing heavy armor, does no damage whatsoever. That really makes characters who buy and wear that heavy armor and take those penalties due to wearing heavy armor, it makes them happy that they chose to do that. And even for that light, that 9 points of damage is only going to do 5, or it's only going to do 1.9 divided by 5 round down, 1 point. They're going to be happy that they got that light armor. So that is the way that I worked with SDC, why I adjusted it, and why I like this system better than the just tacking on a 0. But if anything, tacking on the 0 will help, especially in the more modern Palladium games, from Palladium Fantasy 2nd Edition to Heroes Unlimited. Having 44 SDC means nothing. You at least have 440, that's something. And if you use my mitigation rules of 5 for light and 10 for heavy armor, then that makes armor have meaning, but it also deteriorates. It also gets damaged. You'll need to replace it so you don't lose that aspect of the game. So once again, I'm Lehman Crafton Jr., aka Zorval Chan, Less Than Guru, and until next time, I will catch you later.